The following program is produced by the AM First Radio Network and distributed by Global American Broadcasting, the GAB Radio Network.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali. I am attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Kil Bashir, and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our communities. This week, we'll be discussing mass shootings, gun control, and we'll also talk a little bit more on the issue of bias in the criminal justice system. And joining us today in our discussion is a very special guest, Ralph Rocha. Ralph received a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice from Cal State San Bernardino, a Master of Science in Physical Education at Azusa Pacific University, and a law degree at Taft Law School. Along with his academic accomplishments, Mr. Rocha holds a wealth of experience in the investigative field as a licensed private defense attorney and criminal investigator. He has held positions in the state of California with the Contractors Licensing Board, statewide investigative fraud team, the California State Military Reserve, and most recently, the Orange County Public Defender's Office. Mr. Rocha has exhibited a continuous passion for criminal justice throughout his workings career and currently integrates his extensive expertise in criminal and defense investigation as well as criminal law into his collegiate level criminal justice courses at Azusa Pacific University. All in all, as an adjunct professor, Ralph Rocha is committed to bringing practical, real-world learning to the classroom by enhancing a dynamic classroom environment. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ralph. Appreciate you being here. And let's talk first about the mass shootings, because obviously mass shootings has been, a very difficult issue for us over the last, I think last week, what did we have? We had 7 in a week. Is that what it was? I think it was. Yeah, so it was so many. And one of the things that I kind of want to start, discussing is that, over the last 20 or 25 years, the mass shootings have, significantly increased, right? And so, there's all kinds of different, I guess we could say scuttlebutt or discussion as to why these mass shootings have occurred. Some would say that it's because of the internet. Some would say because it's guns. Some would even say that it's because of the video games and the violence that's done as far as video games are concerned. And some just say it's just outright, increase in hate and anger, right? So I kind of wanted to get your perspective on why you think that there's been this significant increase in mass shootings.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think that you can attribute it to a lot of things, like you just said. Hate, the fact that there's been a pandemic for the last year, over a year, and people have been bottled up in their homes. People are becoming increasingly frustrated. But even before this, there were mass shootings, and we had spurts of mass shootings in this country. So I really don't think you can attribute it to the pandemic, honestly. Honestly, it's been going on for a lot of years. You could go back to Columbine and think about Columbine, Colorado, and that was probably over 20 years ago now, maybe going on 30. And you can't. What's really interesting about it is even if you break it down demographically, I don't think you can really. Maybe you can, maybe you can't hone in on any specific demographic. There's always the problem of evil in human nature. And sometimes people will attribute it to that. That man is inherently evil, and that there's going to be a segment of society out there that's going to want to shoot people and kill people and cause violence against people. It's funny because, I've heard people joke like Black people like to rob, Hispanics like to be gangsters and kill each other, whites like to molest kids. I mean, and maybe that's going to be taken wrongly, but that's the joke, and that's the perception in society. That's a stereotype,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So what are mass shooters? Who are they, and what demographic do they fit into?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I've seen mass shooters of all types. Most recently, it has been a lot of white males.
Right.
I will admit that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you look at the statistics, statistically speaking, we see a high, increasingly high number of white males committing mass shootings in more conservative areas. You know,
Always have.
I haven't seen a lot of mass shootings in Compton or South Central lately, or the inner cities.
Mhm.
It seems like more of the mass shootings are occurring, and like I said, this demographic where you're seeing a lot of Caucasians, and it's more conservative. And you know, when people from LA think about mass shootings in Colorado, we think of Colorado as the Rocky Mountains, and we think of it as you know, a lot of people that like to hunt and deers and people who live in log cabins. I'm from the inner city. You know, I'm from LA. I'm from Los Angeles. So it's interesting. It's kind of a weird thing, and it makes you wonder what's going on with that demographic of people.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and what's causing people to want to act out in fits of rage like this. You know.
Well, I mean, I think, and kind of get get opinions about this. I look at it on a couple of reasons. I mean, I do think that there has actually been some things that probably has triggered this increase over the last 20 or 25 years. And I know statistically they say that approximately 70% of mass shooters are white males, right? I think, first of all, there's a couple of things. And I use two words come to mind when I think of mass shootings and why there's an increase. One is cope and hope. I think that we're starting to live in a society where we're talking about coping. You know, we don't really have, I think the internet has contributed significantly to our inability to really cope with stress as it may relate to just dealing with each other and just dealing with society. I think that we live in a very, you know, everything is urgent, and everything that we need it right away. And so when you're growing, let me give you an example. If I said, hey, I'm going to send you something in 3 days, right? Everybody in here would look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, okay, why would it take you 3 days to send me something? I mean, we live in a society where you get things instantly, instant gratification. You know, we're not built for, you know, patience. We're not built for how to dialogue with people, how to just deal with life in general. Because oftentimes dealing with life is a matter of practice, right? And so let me give you an example. When I was 12 years old, 13 years old, how many friends do you think I had? I mean, you know, maybe in my class, right? But 12 and 13 years old, if you look at Instagram, you look at social media, and we talked about this the other day. They got like 2,000 friends, 3,000 friends. And so, you know, but they're not really friends. They're friends on social media. So everything that you're living, you know, you're living your life out on the internet. You're living your life out in social media. And there's this disconnect. You know, when you take your kids out to dinner, they're always on their cell phones. You know, so you don't have their undivided attention. And we talked about that too. We don't have the undivided attention of our kids anymore because there's always somebody in their ear. When I came home, nobody else was in my ear as a kid. I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have, you know, social media that basically consumed my life. And so now I think that has an impact on, you know, the social media does, the issue of coping. And also now I think that we'd have no hope in our society. I mean, I think that, you know, people have gotten to a point because now we looked at, you know, there's a different take on police brutality than I think that it was before. The take on police brutality, I think when I was a younger man, was that basically things are going to get better. we're really working on it, and things are going to get better. But nowadays, people are very hopeless. People are really thinking that we've gotten to a point right now where we have no, we don't we don't have a lot of confidence in our own society and confidence in our own government. And so we're very hopeless. I'll be honest with you. I have a lot less hope than I did 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You see where I'm going with that?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're living with in a society where if you don't have hope, people get stressed out. It's anger. These people are angry to a point where they're going to go out and they're going to just start killing people. And we're just living in a society where people can't really cope with their stress, right? And people are just have no hope of things getting better. And when you can't cope with things and you have no hope, then you're going to do that, right? I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So what type of individual would just lose their mind and just go out and just start doing these mass shootings, right? And why is it so much more now than it was, in the past? And I think it does have a lot to do with those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember when I was about 18 years old, I took a criminal justice class. It was my first criminal justice course. I was at a community college.
Hey, don't lose that thought, because we're actually really getting ready.
Great idea for a radio show, but have no idea where to start? Or have you been hosting a podcast for a while and want to take it to the next level? If so, you need the Gab Radio Network. To host a show on the Gab Radio Network, all you need is your voice, and we'll handle the rest, from technical engineering to full-service audio production and much more. Every show on the Gab Radio Network can be heard on our station on the TuneIn Radio app. Plus, we put all of our shows on our satellite, which is accessed by over 5,500 stations. And here's the best part. You can host from anywhere you want. There are many means to connect to the Gab Radio Network remotely, and our staff of highly trained engineers and producers will make you sound like you're right here in studio. So, if you want to be on the Gab Radio Network, the same network that hosts the Small Business Advocate, Radio MD, and the Federalist, send an email right now to sales@gabradionetwork.com. That's sales@gabradionetwork.com.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Thank you welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew. We're continuing with our discussion on mass shootings, gun violence, and bias in the criminal justice system. And I think before we, and again, I want to thank our very special guest, Ralph Rocha, for joining us today and giving us his insight and expertise on the subject. So I appreciate that. I know right before we went to the break, you were going to You had a thought you wanted to.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
yeah.
hear you.
No, I was just going to say, I remember this was 25 years ago, but, one of our criminal justice professors said, society has been degrading in the last, 20, 30 years. We've seen the degradation of society. And I'm thinking, well, if that was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and people had already seen the degradation of society over the last 20, 30 years, it's only gotten worse. And what's interesting is technology has been enhanced. We have the greatest technology in this country, in this world, than we've ever had. We have more technological advancements than we've ever had in human history. We have things that our grandparents would have only dreamed about, things like the internet and cell phones and TVs. But this hasn't made us better. It's seemingly made us worse, which is an interesting thought.
So you think, so what you're saying is you think that technology has actually been a curse and not necessarily something positive for us?
Yeah, I think it's been a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I remember when I was growing up in LA, the gangs were very prolific and everybody was out in the street. I mean, we grew up in the kind of culture where people rode their bikes around the block and played baseball in the streets, and gangsters roamed down the streets, and you would see people and they were active. Nowadays, you don't see anybody in the streets. In a lot of neighborhoods where you would see that before. In my neighborhood, you see 20, 30 gang members walking down the street, guys ratting the walls, people, and everybody's inside their house tucked away on social media. They're on Instagram and YouTube and the internet. So I think in one way, it sort of solved that one issue, but in another way, now people are confined, they're isolated, you hear about all these suicides happening with these kids inside their houses, and they're feeling, like you said, use the word hopeless. And it's funny because you scroll through Instagram, you scroll through Facebook, you're looking for answers in the internet. I think people are looking for happiness. Every time you get a like in your on your Instagram feed or Facebook, it releases dopamine.
That's
in your
true.
Mind. It's like a drug.
That is very true. That is very, very true. That's very true. People live their life out on that's how we live our life. On social media, because oftentimes what we do, a lot of value. I mean, even the postings that people do amaze me. You know what I'm saying? It's for example, never mind. I'm not gonna say it, but I mean, it does. Somehow people like to show. They like to be. The internet is a way for you to be a celebrity, and you want the likes. You want people to see what you're doing, and it is addictive to people. It is absolutely addictive to people. When you blow your horn, people blow their horn. They get a new car, they put it on Facebook. They get a new house, they put it on Facebook. They get an award, they put it on Facebook. Everything that they do, they put it on Facebook, and you're living your life through this, in this forum. And you're right. I mean, I do believe that a lot of people, become addicted to it and may, commit suicide as a result of it.
But I want to go back to the mass shooting issue, Brother Ali, and I think we're overlooking something. I study human behavior, and mass shootings have become socially acceptable, like they weren't back in 70s, 80s, et cetera. And when you look at mass shootings, they have predominantly been a white male phenomenon. And the importance in that is when you look at mass shootings and tearing them apart is a very cowardly way to assess your degree of greatness. Take those same individuals and put them in an environment where they know the individuals in that environment are going to be packing. You will not see the same dynamic play out in terms of them shooting up a school, a venue, or whatever. So because of the social acceptance, and I would have to add to this, the lack of true consequence to a mass shooter. Look at most mass shooters. They get fame in the process. They probably get prison time. Very few of them will get terminated in terms of their life being taken away. A very easy way to get that fame. And if there's some degree of imbalance in the process, that fame is exactly what they're looking for. So we cannot overlook true human behavior and acceptance in this process.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an issue of human behavior. And I think that's why, as humans, that's what I talked about, hope and hope. I mean, your ability to deal with, coping skills. I mean, we the whole idea of your ability to cope with things that now you would not, before we always had the people going postal. You know what I mean? And that was a huge thing. People are going to come back because he's going to go postal because he lost his job and he's hopeless and he comes back and he's going to do whatever. But I just think that I do believe that we're, as a society, our ability to teach our kids and teach people, like in your generation, Rosa, the millennials. I mean, they can't handle stress the same way that the prior generations handle stress, and I think a lot of it has to do with, and I think that it does have to do with how we live, socially. I mean, we don't, for example, like I told you, the way I interacted with people had to do just clearly with my family. I mean, getting home once, like I said, I didn't know anything about dealing with the outside world once I got to the home and sat there and had dinner with the family.
And I totally agree that I feel like human interaction has evolved with the implementation of social media overall. However, I feel like putting the blame on mass shootings in a way as being the effect of social media or being the effect of this change in human interaction really takes away from the fact that it is more than a mental health issue, because a lot of the times victims are more likely, 3 times more likely to be victims, and more than a social media issue is rather a systematic issue. We are the only country in the world that is struggling with mass shootings.
Right.
Social media is global.
And that's interesting. I'm gonna just say this real quick. Look at South Korea and Japan. They have just as much technology. They have just as much social media, but you do not see that same type of interaction and gunplay in their societies as you do with us. But I think that goes back to hope. You know what I mean? I think that basically we live in a very that's where you're going with suicidal. You know what I mean? We live in such, and again, I mean, there's 2 different things. There's one, I mean, obviously you have the issues with, human beings just are stressed and depressed in our society today. There's a lot of depression. And I see that people are depressed because, more than ever, right?
And I would agree with that. However, I feel like I'm not sure if we, as in the wealthiest country, are more depressed than people in third world countries or developing countries, and why we would attribute mass shootings to the loss of hope.
I think we are. I think that money cannot. I think that just goes to show you that basically, because some of the most suicidal people are the people are some of the wealthiest people. I mean, for example, wealth does not have any impact on. In fact, wealth actually adds to your stress in many cases. Some people, they go from homeless and then they become millionaires, and they'll lose their mind out in the street, shooting guns and committing suicide. I think that it does say a lot about the hopelessness. And you talk about systematic. I think our system and the way in which, because, the way we treat each other as humans. And what happens is that basically, for example, like, let's just use the issue of an African American, that basically his wealth does not change the way in which he's going to be treated in this society. You know what I mean? Regardless of what industry he is in. And so sometimes I think that maybe but that's a very, very, very good point on both of those issues. But at any rate, please do not touch that dial. We'll continue with Justice Watch on the other side of the break.
I'm mad. Got to get back. Need some get back.
There's a new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a Black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host Attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com. Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep Your Hand on the Plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew and our very special guest, Mr. Ralph Rocha, joining in our discussion on mass shootings, gun control, and bias in the criminal justice system. So I like that dialogue you and Mr. Rocha had. So give me that again, Rosa.
I guess
because what I was, you remember I told you it was cope and hope. I'm gonna get you fired up again.
Okay.
It's cope and hope.
There's hope in this millennial.
And it's the millennials. Because I know I made the millennials mine. So I think it could be the social media and how that impacts. I mean, are we just where do we go with that? Does that have an impact on it or?
I think my issue is not merely with does it have an impact or not. My issue is with the fact that mass shootings and how are they framed. A lot of the times they're framed from the point of view of it's an issue that stems from, social media and all of that. And a lot of the other times it's framed as is an issue that deals with mental health, even though, like I said, perpetrators are more likely to be victims 3 times. And so to me, that's the issue because it takes away from the fact that guns in this country have been here from the inception of the United States, right? Mass shootings have happened from the beginning of this country. I mean, you talk about foreign direct investment and what we do throughout the world and globally. But it hasn't become such an issue until now, I feel, and it's merely because definitely social media has given a platform for people to kind of advertise mass shootings and whatnot. And to me, what really bugs me in a way is that it takes away from really coming to an agreement on what needs to be done to move forward, because it leaves it at a partisan issue. It leaves it out. Yes, we're going to discuss mass shootings, but we're going to discuss just how that stems from social media instead of focusing on, hey, what are the solutions that we need to bring to the table? Because this is more than a social media issue, more than a mental health issue. This is an American issue because we are the only country in the world that has these issues. When you talk about social media as well, the proportion of people that are committing these mass shootings are males from ages 18 to 49. We're also talking about boomers, people who did not perhaps grow up with social media being their only social interaction.
Right.
So that's where I'm going with that. I'm not sure if I made myself clear.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of framing the issue, I think that might have been misunderstood because I don't think anybody was framing the issue in regards to social media. I don't think anybody was saying that mass shootings is a social media issue. I think we jumped a little bit kind of all over the place. We talked about not making it a partisan issue, not attributing it to social media, not attributing it to mental health, but then what are we attributing it to? Because when we do when you look at a problem, you got to go to a root, right? And everybody wants to try to figure out what the root is. Is the root the problem of evil or mental health or this or that, or and so what is the root of it? Like you just said, you made a good point. You said that a lot of baby boomers are engaging in these mass shootings, and these people didn't necessarily grow up using social media. So I don't think social media is the issue. I think it may contribute to the issue. I think there's a lot of contributing factors. Me as a religious person, and I'll just bring religion into it, and nobody ever wants to bring religion into it because religion is hot and it's controversial. And what do they say? Don't ever talk about religion or politics, right? Because everybody will start.
Unless you're on Justice Watch.
Unless you're on Justice Watch. But I really think we have to, because we're spiritual beings. That's the way I see it. And kill me and don't ever invite me back for saying this. But I think at the root of us, there's a spirit. I believe we're triune beings. I believe that there's a body, a soul, and a spirit. And I think that a lot of us are just spiritually down. And we try to go beyond ourselves, and we're kind of operating at an exterior level. We're trying to find solutions all over the place rather than finding solutions in ourselves, in and of ourselves, and in the spiritual realm, and getting ourselves right with Allah or God, and really coming to this realization that, hey, this is all temporal. We're all going to die one day, all of us, and everything that you see around is fading away. I think Dr. Brashear talked about, material things and possessions and things like that. And so many people are focused on these things. So whether it's social media, whether it's material possessions, whether it's behavioralism, whatever, I really think it comes down to us as individuals in the spirit. And Mr. Ali made a good point the other day when we were talking in his office, and he said, rather than just going to politicians or rather than going to the outside, I think the Black Panthers had a saying, but it was power by the people, right? The people,
all power to the people.
Our power to the people, and power came from the people.
Wherever there's people, there's power.
Right, and power comes from the inside, and I think we have to kind of start to hone in on that. I think that's the important thing. Rather than attribute it to this or this, why don't we start to look inside ourselves and our own spirits?
That is. I think that's where that's hope. Spirituality allows you to both know how to cope and have hope. And I think that whenever you're in a situation where you basically are bankrupt in that aspect of it, and the one thing that social media can do is it can contribute to putting you in a situation where you sometimes maybe not, relate to that spiritual aspect of it, when you're dealing with it. You know what I mean? So, and when we talked about people in your ear, I'm glad you brought it up, and I don't want to make a religious show. When we were around that table, you know what I mean? That's that wholesomeness of family, the wholesomeness of spirituality, of those things are the things that you need. And when you talk about, the spiritual feeding that you need through family, through spirituality. But now, because of social media, because of other influences, I think that maybe, somebody else is in the kid's ear. You know what I mean? You don't have their undivided attention. And that's really important. When you think about, these little knuckleheads. These little knuckleheads, when you got these little knuckleheads that got these people inside of their ear and, being influenced by others. And there's everything there, right? There's no, we don't even talk about that. When we talk about mass shootings, what we're talking about here, I mean, do we really even talk about the whole idea of, you know, where we're going and how we're, you know, relating to each other as people? And even during during the Trump administration, when they had that situation going on, I mean, when we needed healing and we needed someone who comes as a moral leader, then he's talking about there's good people on both sides and just I mean, that's not what we needed to hear. You know what I mean? We needed some sort of, you know, the reason why people don't get along with each other. I mean, I don't care how religious that you say you are. I mean, if you are a person of spirituality, you're going to have that certain love for your fellow man, and it's easier to heal things when you come from that perspective. You know, you can't do anything with hate. And when look at the last 4 years, that's all we had was hate. We heard hate from our leader, the leader of the country. So if you got a leader of the country that's spewing hate, then why would you expect that that's how people respond to stuff. You know, they thought they were cool with hate and we were cool with hate. But those are the things that we don't talk about now. And I'm glad that you brought that up, actually. I think that's very important.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you make a good point. You know, and there's bad religious people. There's on all sides. There's people who have committed atrocities in the name of religion.
Yes.
And I don't think
Yes.
religion is the answer. So don't misquote
I
me.
didn't use the word religion.
Yeah.
And you didn't use the word religion either.
No.
You said spirituality.
Amen.
A
Amen.
And that's a big difference.
Yeah. And that's the truth, right? Because love transcends everything, you know, and I think that I know Jesus spoke of it. I know Muhammad spoke of it, but love is the thing that transcends everything. And I think when we think of, and we don't talk about it enough, because when we think about love, we think about a sloppy emotion, you know, like, oh, I love this person. And it's more like infatuation. But when you love someone, you're willing to have patience. You're willing to be kind. You're willing to put other people first. You're willing to serve people. You're willing to wash their feet. That's what love is. And I think that we lack love in our society. I really do. And we can contribute. We can, like I said, we can attribute all this evil to so many different things. I mean, it sounds like a simplistic argument, especially for a person who has a doctorate degree and a master's degree. I'm not getting into sociological arguments. I'm basically saying we lack love.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely it. I mean, and a lot of times when you have, you know, these individuals that are, and there's victims that, you know, you talked about the issue of victim, but then I think that what you were saying is I think that framing it that way makes the perpetrator a victim.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Victims are victims are 3 times more likely to not be a perpetrator, but a victim of a mass shooting. So they're not more likely to be a perpetrator.
Also, you're saying that people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in other words, you're saying that that sometimes the way that we frame it, we sometimes do it in a way in which, you know, tries to make excuses for the perpetrator.
Yes, it's a mental health issue, and we don't talk about the fact that it's a gun issue per se, or that per se it's the policies, or.
Can you say that word again?
Per se.
No, before that.
Gun issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a gun issue? Now we're gonna talk about the gun. Now everybody's gonna get fired up. Is it guns? I mean, now that we got the automatic weapons, and I mean, I know we're getting ready, pushing up against the break, but we do have to get that issue. Is it the gun? Is it? I mean, maybe if we take automatic weapons off the street, is it the gun?
No, it's not the gun.
Talk to me, Rosa. Now I'm not gonna get mad at you. Just
I
tell
posed a question. I posed.
No, that's not fair. You gotta bring it to. Now, come on. Is it the gun?
I mean.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm cool with it.
As a millennial myself, I think that has a bit to do with it.
It has a bearing. It has a bearing.
It has a bit to do with it.
Okay. We're going to talk about that.
Nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a Black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host Attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com. Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep Your Hand on the Plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew and our very special guest, Ralph Rocha, in our discussion on mass shootings, gun control. And we probably should have talked about gun control first, because I know this is going to get the most instead of the end, because this is where we're going to get the fire. And everybody's scared. Don't be scared. Talk to me. Talk to me. I want to hear about, about the guns. I mean,
we're going to let your guests, out of respect, open up, and then we'll chat right here.
Everybody's going to fire on me first. No pun intended. So I think that growing up, I was a gang member when I was a kid. I grew up in LA, and I was involved in gangs. My father was a gang member. My mother was a gang member. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. My father was in jail for committing armed robbery with a gun when I was born. So I wasn't always a college professor or an investigator. I grew up in a disadvantaged background. Like I said, I came from a gang family, born to two teenage gang members, and I saw a lot of violence as a kid. And my father had guns, and we had guns, and a lot of times they weren't used for the right reason. A lot of times they were used for protection, and sometimes they were used for committing offenses. I don't think it's necessarily about guns per se. Just being around guns my whole life and being around violent people my whole life. When we talk about gun control, I think we need to switch the issue. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody say this, but it just occurred to me. It's more about people control than gun control. And I think if we can change the hearts and minds of people, you can put anything into a person's hand, and they're not going to commit acts of violence. But that's the million-dollar question, is how do we change the culture? How do we change the cultural norms? How do we change people's thinking in society? I live out in the San Gabriel Valley in LA County, and a guy just went on a rampage at a park the other day and stabbed a lady down the street from my house and her dog for no apparent reason. He was just randomly attacking people. He didn't have a gun; he had a knife, but he probably would have done it with anything, a fork, a rock. So I guess that's the question: is how do we solve this issue? And I hear the counter argument is, well, if we allow these guns out there, we're making these instruments of murder and homicide and death more easily accessible. I think that's kind of a bunk argument. Like I said, because we already have a lot of controls. in place. We have a lot of gun laws. California has some of the most stringent gun laws in the country. People are still out there committing crimes. All the gangsters I knew growing up, they weren't affected. They were unaffected by gun laws. You get guns off the black market, you get guns off the street.
Right.
People break into people's houses and steal guns.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about the human condition than it is about the instrument.
Right. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think Ralph's right on point. Look, I come from the culture also. Been around killers all my life. Been around shooters, still am. Been around so many organizations with propelled the use of guns, etc. And to the point, these individuals who are out here killing, whether there's a gun involved or a gun is not involved, they are still going to carry out the act. Now, I will give it to the other side. Guns are an instrument of mass destruction. They make the killing a lot easier, and the body count is much higher. And I know that's why they're used. If I have to use a stick or a knife as opposed to a gun, and I have made the determination that I want to take some people out, obviously I'm going to go to the gun. So at the end of the day, yes, gun reduction is going to assist in the problem, but we got to be crystal clear that gun reduction is not going to solve the problem. And so many of these gun advocates, if the answer to them is just taking away all the guns, do you think the violence is going to stop? Long before we had guns in this society, we were a very violent society, killing each other, and we're still going to do that. So just removing the guns is not going to solve the problem. It will assist, but it's not going to solve the problem.
You got a last word on that one?
I agree. I mean, removing guns is not going to solve the problem, and overall, putting in more stringent rules and policies that allow a person to hold the gun or not will not change it. I think, in a way, it's also, like I said, a deterrent from the real issue. That is that why a person in itself feels so much pressure to come out and shoot another individual in this country. And I think in part it deals with the fact that in the system, race plays a role in access to housing, medical care, employment opportunities, income levels, and all of that. And those are the symptoms that need to be addressed in order to be able to really counter this whole disease that is mass shootings.
Yeah. I think that, and that's right. I mean, I think that sometimes, what we need to do, and I think that at least I believe that there's a consensus, and I mean, I know there's different discussions, but I think the consensus is that, how we get there, I don't really know, to be honest with you, but it does, there is a serious issue with the type of policy that we have within our country and the way that we relate to each other. And it comes from, our leadership. And I think that when you have a leadership, even when we talk about our current leadership and we talk about legislation and always trying to do legislation. And we think that legislation is not going to change behavior, which you talked about. We're seeing what legislation has done in this state when it comes to trying to legislate, the way that we deal with each other as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I think the focus does have to be within our own communities. And,
Agreed.
And I think that there has to be some way of building some sort of alliance among all of the organizations in our community, and not just because I think that what we've always focused on is one organization and their way, and having their way to be the way to solving the problem. But I think that what we have to get to is we have to put these organizations. We should have a collective alliance of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Your organization, my organization, and your organization. Although we have different ideas, everybody's not going to be a Pan-Africanist. Everybody is not going to be down with the Black Panther Party. Everybody's not going to be down with the Sunni Muslims. Everybody's not going to be down with the Nation of Islam. Everybody's not going to be down with Christianity. Everybody's not going to be down with socialism, Marxism, and all that. But I think that if we can develop 4 or 5 really important objectives that we all agree with and come under that umbrella, and regardless of where your paradigm, being able to sit at the 5 families at the table.
Mm-hmm.
The gangsters, those 5 families didn't get along with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a council so that everybody could have certain principles and certain rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we come to that and begin to start coming under that umbrella and stop saying even the Greek organizations, which they did with the Pale Hellenic Council. I mean, we just have to find a way that we can put ourselves under umbrella and kind of come to certain, principles that we're all going to follow and call it some sort of collective alliance. Black, brown, it can be more than that. But as long as your organization is willing to abide and at least focus on these 4 or 5 principles, and that we can come together and we can move in unison, then I think that we're going to start trying to, because the government's not going to do it for us. Right. And we're going to have to do it for ourselves. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to start looking at in building that type of alliance.
Totally agree. I totally agree.
Right. I mean, because otherwise, it's not one group is not going to have the solution. But if we're going to get a solution, then I think that we need to start working together as a society, or we're just going to perish as a society, and we're going to just keep seeing more of the same. Absolutely. We're almost finished. You got 30 seconds.
I love what you just said. It's like a consortium of groups, organizations in society. Like you said the other day, I don't think we can go to politicians. They're not going to solve our problems. We're going to solve our problems. Where there's people, there's power.
All right, definitely.
Well said.
Wow. I appreciate you joining us, our special guest Ralph Roach, and I appreciate our listening audience. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. And until that time.
A new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
The following program on KCAA is pre-recorded.
The views and opinions expressed by individuals on the following program do not necessarily reflect those of the network, Guys